to Qatar for the first time today. Graham Hunter, good morning to you. How are you?
Buenos dias, chicos.
Football, bloody hell, eh? Quiet 24 hours.
Yeah. You're talking to an Arabic country. Language, if you don't mind.
I'm already in trouble this morning about that. So let's just start with the timeline of events goes from Leo Messi opening the scoring and everything looking rosy to Ronaldo being fired, essentially, and the Glazers putting the club up for sale, and France reminding us that, you know, we're not just champions for no reason. I'd say when the history of football comes to be written, those 24 hours are going to be as seismic as anything we've actually seen in a long time. If the club gets, if United gets sold.
It's a cornucopia, isn't it? It's an absolute biblical cornucopia of fun. Where do you want me to start? Drop a pin, Ger. Drop a pin.
The Glazers thing, I think, is really interesting, right? Like football clubs being sold. Liverpool are up for sale. Manchester United are up for sale. Chelsea have just sold for quite a significant amount. There's loads of Gulf money interested in football, and I just what are you hearing? What do you think? What do you sense about all this?
The first, you asked me what I'm hearing. The first thing to say is, if you want to intertwine two of those stories, let everybody be clear. I have this as a matter of fact. In the summer, Erik ten Hag's coaching staff, sufficient numbers of the senior players who were consulted, other staff who were at United that Ten Hag inherited, all said, it's time for, not get him out, not we despise him, it's time to move him on. And the Glazers said no. It was absolutely 100% a decision by the owners that Cristiano Ronaldo must stay. So the mess that you were talking about and how people will feel was caused by the owners. As far as the Glazers are concerned, having read the statement, I think that because they've been so despised for their leeching of money, and despised by people who are beyond Manchester United fans, and not, if you were one, the level of desperation must have been high, because any big club run in a way where it's tied its bootlaces together, which they have, ineptitude of appointments, ineptitude of signings, vast wastes of money, and money being leached out the back door to pay the owners the dividends. That's an implosion situation, and therefore far, in my opinion, far beyond the idea of not being competitive in the Champions League, not being competitive to win the title, having to work hard to make top four. All of these things could have become the tip of the iceberg. The whole entity could have been shriveled into a prune, and financial problems could have easily come their way. So, in my opinion, we have to be analytically very careful about what's being said. It does look as if it's up for sale, but will they sell? Will they change their mind? Will the buyer be the right one to satisfy the needs of the club, which is dynamism, planning, experience, a change in how they view the profitability of owning a club, or do they need profit? And for Manchester United fans who've been lashing out at City's owners or Newcastle's owner or PSG's owner, are you about to be in the same? This is a story which it's very, very, very early gestation. There are many, many layers, and it's beyond just careful what you wish for, because there will be an array of options coming in the direction of Old Trafford, and it's not for sure that the Glazers will sell. I don't believe from what we've read so far, and therefore it's a very, very complex story. And in the meantime, I suspect it means uncertainty and disruption at Manchester United, uncertainty and disruption in Lionel Scaloni's camp too. Each game needs to be looked at in its own merits. So talking wholly generically is wrong, but there are some wider context conclusions you can draw. Without being parochial, I go back to Spain-Switzerland in the first game of 2010, and not the fact that Spain then won the tournament and Argentina can, but when you get a relatively skillful side in relatively good nick, but which is full of top-level players who are a little bit tired, a little bit jaded, and are a little bit smaller than opponents, it starts to even things out. Saudi Arabia, in particular positions, particularly in the 9 up front, very, very good. 2 goals, exceptional. Their tactics, exceptional. Bigger, stronger, quicker all over the park, totally committed. These gaps can narrow consistently. And while Iran and Saudi are different footballing ideas and different individual footballers, it did, to my taste at least. Well, I'll give you a little anecdote. Yesterday, I was taking Luis Enrique Martinez, the Spain coach, from a flash interview area where people do interviews standing up. I was granted a studio, so there's a television studio in the International Broadcasting Centre where the press conferences were taking place. And once he was behind the scenes, we got on reasonably well. He sort of leapt on me, put his arm around my shoulder, and I wouldn't do the Spanish. How's it going, Graham? England, what about England last night? They were exceptional. I was like, mate, hold on. I was dressed in an Iran strip. I'm Scottish. Yeah, okay, fair point. Luis Enrique, my point, apart from his little joke, was he was exhilarated by what he watched when he saw England playing. And so the four teams are not identikits, but it does cast in very strong light the way in which England remorselessly were on form, fit, dynamic, pretty ruthless in when their power plays of goals came in comparison to Argentina. So it's a broad brush, Ger, Shane, because 4 different nations, but there are still wider conclusions to draw about what lesser understood, lesser researched teams can do to the bigger sides who come jaded and need, after all their intensive concertina league campaigns, who need time to get their momentum rolling.
So you brought up England there, right? One thing that might happen here is that, like we've seen with Southgate, he plays that style of play, that formation against teams who he thinks he's going to beat. But if, for example, he was to come up against Spain later in the tournament, he's probably going to stick in another defender and weaken the side significantly. Maybe they'll be hard to beat, but the chances of them winning that game in normal time suddenly lessens. And it's interesting to hear that Luis Enrique is like, actually, this is amazing. They were really good playing like that.
He was bubbling. He was absolutely bubbling. And look, that's a big can of worms you've opened. I did on my podcast a real piece of analysis that I'm genuinely proud of after the Italy final. And I think there are things that are endemic, inbuilt in Gareth Southgate that limit him a little bit. I think he's done, and I said this before, I'll repeat, it was evident in Russia, as a guy who's come in and analytically assessed what was in front of him, the problems he suffered as a footballer with England, the problems that his elite footballers, and he does have many of them, are suffering, the way in which the media, English media, genuinely hampered the confidence and the exuberance of certain players. The squad feeling, if I can use that phrase, of unity, enjoyment of being together. He came in and with a scalpel, he rebuilt everything that was the dead weight that England's football team had to be dragging. And then he's got in significant numbers of his very good players understanding his ideas, relatively motivated to play for him and on form, and no longer. I was England correspondent in the 90s, and it's hard to believe for multimillionaires, even then they were multimillionaires, but the repetitive wearing down nature of the tabloids turning on them and hammering them, and their families being sad and their friends being sad and your dad and mum being outraged. That was utterly corrosive on split-second decision. Do I take the shot? Do I make this pass? Do I want to go? He's changed all of that. Is he, in those moments that you've begun to outline, we're game one, Joe, we have to be careful, but in the crucial moments of how do I play this big opponent? What's my team? I think often with time to plan, he's quite good. If you look at the way they attacked Italy or Croatia in the opening stages of the semi-final of the World Cup or the final of the Euros, it's all there. In game management, during the game when you're on the touchline, you're not watching a video, it's hurly-burly, you're drawing conclusions, and you're having to tighten your sphincter going back to your football bloody hell and say, yeah, this is what I know what we're doing. This is what we're doing. That's where I think there's a lack.
Does it have an influence, do you think, on Luis Enrique's approach to watching other teams in the World Cup be so effervescent?
No. Easiest answer you'll ever ask me for. No. He has no... I've interviewed him twice since we arrived. Twice he said, we're daring, we're ambitious. Ambition to me means we play every team the same way. We will not die of fear. If we die, we'll die of ambition, of not being good enough. Front foot, attack, entertain, aggressive. We want the world to watch us. There is absolutely no question that part of his philosophy will never change, irrespective of which club or nation he's managing or who's in front of him. The ideology of the concept of maybe might it be 3-4-3 today, or might it be it won't be a 4-2-3-1. Those things, retouches, yes. But he lives by, and again, I maybe had 5 interviews in the last 18 months, one-on-one with him. His 3 watchwords: attack, pressurize, ambition. He always says he picks his team based on how can each of these players attack, each of them. And then when we don't have the ball, I want my teams to press the other team until we get them. Not high, not the press that we saw with Pep Guardiola's Barcelona. There are various different styles of it. But anybody who will not pressurize an opponent and pressurize in groups won't play for him. And ambition is at them. Get at them every minute. And if we're 1-0 up with 6 minutes remaining, attack. Don't bank. Don't be conservative. Attack. So it's a simple answer to your question.
Graham, I guess when you look at some of the groups and you look at some of the pathways that could come out of it in terms of last 16 and quarterfinals, topping the group could be very important in terms of setting your own pathway and avoiding some of the big guns. Like when you look at Spain's group, a lot of people kind of talking about Germany coming in under the radar. Look, the Costa Rica game today, you'd imagine, even though I had totally forgotten about Costa Rica topping a group of death with Italy, England and Uruguay back in 2014, one of the great shocks. Like, what's the general vibe in Spain? Is it that Germany are no Germany of old, or that that they can go on ahead and push on and win this group quite comfortably and maybe push on from there?
See, it's hard to talk to you about the general vibe in Spain. I've been here in Qatar now 10 days. Clearly, I speak to media colleagues who are Spanish. I've read today's football press. Do you know, there's almost no mention of the rivals or the group of death. The general attention is on this baby Spain. There is a wide understanding that this Spanish group, albeit it's very, very junior, I think average age, am I right? Might it be the youngest squad in the tournament on average age? I think so. And therefore, I think there's a over the months since the draw, Shane, there's been a recognition that if Spain don't beat Costa Rica, this is one of those groups that they might not go through. And I think that other nations will do well to look at Spain as, we hope they trip up in the group, because if they get momentum, they can be dangerous. I don't ascribe to, there's been lots of studies and statistical modelling and all this kind of stuff that says Spain are the second favourites behind Brazil and it's going to be Spain in the final. Honestly, having been at 8 World Cups now in various guises, I think Spain lack a killer goal scorer. They're very slender, very lithe, very young, and I'm not certain that they portray as winners. But in terms of the Spanish media's appreciation of the rivals, they've become inward-looking. The Spanish media and the fans have begun to enjoy this Spain side. They've begun to believe, because of semi-final Euros, beaten finalists in the Nations, the first side to qualify for 2 Final Fours in the Nations League. There's a general belief that it can be fun to be involved in Spain again, and that's been paramount ahead of thinking about Costa Rica, Germany, or Japan. But that phrase, Shane, does not apply to the analysts. I've been talking to the analysts at Spain, and they think they've got a very complicated job, not only to beat these sides and go through, but to change the styles that Spain will need to, or the tactical ideas that Spain will need to use to play 3 very, very different rivals.
What did Luis Enrique think of Messi? It was before the Saudi Arabia game.
Yeah, by that stage, he hadn't seen it. I doubt he'll have had a chance to see anything except the highlights. You might know by now, they're living next door to one another. Both of them have spoken about the other recently because of that tempestuous time they had in the move from 2014 to 2015 when David Moyes' Real Sociedad beat Barcelona, and there was a stand-up, chin to chin, not quite punches, but finger jabbing between Luis Enrique and Leo Messi. So they live in Qatar University. The training pitches and what's called university hostels are right next door to each other, Argentina and Spain, with Holland a hop and a skip away. It's a vast complex, Qatar University, with really, really good training facilities. And they don't need to share cornflakes over the breakfast table because they are distinct buildings, but they could lean out the window over the washing and shout, "All right, mate. All right, gaffer." Could do if they wanted to.
What did you make of the Argentina performance? Like, is that the bit where you're thinking about Spain and the Swiss defeat and thinking, okay, they just need to calm down and batten down the hatches?
It was odd, not just that they were beaten, but that they were beaten having taken the lead. I think if you unravel the names and go backwards from the expectation that because they were 3 years unbeaten and because Messi's been on form for Paris Saint-Germain, if we unravel all that and simply look at the two types of teams, in any game we cover, and any time you're at a Premier League game, any time it's Villa v Everton, whatever you want to call it, when you're beaten by two extraordinary goals, and I think each of the goals are pretty extraordinary. Emi Martinez is a good goalkeeper, threw everything up, both of them couldn't get there. When you're hit by sucker punches like that takes some of the juice out of the analysis about were Argentina tactically wrong or were any of them absolute rubbish. The effervescence wasn't there. The ability to squeeze the game wasn't there. And there is no way you can look back on the previous 3 years of Argentina and Scaloni and say, well, that means it's all a myth. It was all a mirage. In my opinion, that I don't know if it was who's famous British commentator, goals change games. When you're sucker punched by two brilliant goals like that, I think it takes the wind out of your sails. When you're suffering for energy, it makes it worse. If you look at their performance, particularly De Paul, and if you look at the way in which it was, Saudi were quite good at nullifying Messi. It emphasizes again how much Argentina rely on Messi to do special things, which is now special passes, tempo controlling, the occasional goal, a brilliant free kick. And if you looked at De Paul, caught my eye a lot. He's been lethargic and not very influential for Atleti. I felt it was the same way again yesterday. They looked like a team which needed fizz, which needed energy, and not conviction or quality or self-confidence, but energy. And I say again, those big teams that draw on players who've been thrashed in their domestic season to get as many games played as possible to get here, they need to pick up momentum. And that's why that first game now for Spain today, Germany against Japan can have a similar paint to Saudi against Argentina. I expect Germany to win. But for Spain against Costa Rica, Costa Rica are in certain positions taller than Spain. Set plays become very interesting. Costa Rica have appointed a coach whereby their first half of the qualifying campaign won them 2 points. The second half of the equivalent number of games, they took 19 points. Joe Campbell is the reference point up front, but Luis Fernandez Suarez appointed young guys and said to Keylor Navas, back me, bring them through. So they have nothing to fear. They're young, very quick. They're on a great run of form. And physically, they can maybe try to do some of the same things that Luis Suarez said yesterday, I want to make it uncomfortable for Spain. So that first game phenomenon, and I think Spain have only won 4 of their first games in all of their World Cups. So what we saw for Argentina yesterday, I don't think it's going to be a unique experience.
Graham, we're not going to stop talking about Kylian Mbappe to Real Madrid until it happens. I mean, watching him last night, and if there was any doubts as to whether or not he was going to light up this World Cup if France go deep, I mean, every time he touched the ball last night, you just felt like something was going to happen, albeit the opposition in Australia wasn't world beaters. But are the top brass in Madrid just licking their lips watching him at this World Cup?
No, not at all, Shane, no. Will Mbappe move to Real Madrid? Yeah, maybe, but let's be crystal clear. Their 2 primary objectives are Haaland and Bellingham. And that's for this summer coming. That's who they want to sign. That's who they believe they've got a chance of signing. My personal opinion is I don't think they get either of them. But while Mbappe Florentino Perez is a pragmatic man. He didn't used to be. He used to be an absolutist. Over 22 years. He came in 2000. He missed about a year. So let's call it over just about 21 years of being president. He's had to learn that occasionally you're flexible, you adapt. But the way in which Mbappe has now 3 times turned them down, they're a haughty club, Shane. You know that they're aristocratic. They are deeply stung by being rejected, and therefore it's only if they don't get Haaland that the idea of signing Kylian Mbappe will come back on the table. And at the moment, they definitely have not renounced the idea that they might tempt Haaland away from City. I personally cannot see how or why that would happen. And I think City probably also beat them to Bellingham. So Real Madrid may have to rejig and rethink their plans, particularly the way in which Benzema's best ever season probably has been followed by one of his most injury hit seasons. So, yeah, but if you want my appreciation of Mbappe, I think he's not far from being the most exciting footballer, not striker, on the planet. I absolutely dote on him. I go back, I can't even remember how many years to a John Collins interview. It's several years ago, and he said, "Listen, at Monaco, there are some brilliant kids coming through. There's this guy Silva, there's this guy Mondi. Well, look what happened to him, and there's this guy Mbappe, who they say, and this would have been Mbappe's first season at Monaco, and John Collins is so linked to that club and knows so much about them. He said they are saying at this stage already that he can be better than Thierry Henry. So many years forward, he's an extraordinary athlete, does things at great pace. And there are moments when he reminds me of Ronaldo Nazario. Not identical in any way, but I haven't seen a player that made me think of Ronaldo Nazario so much since Kylian Mbappe.
Congratulations on the documentary, by the way. I'm not sure everybody knows that you're involved with it, but we had the director on last week. He was great as ever.
Duncan McMath is a genius, Ger. Get him on every week.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking if we could just engineer a way to just pick his football brain or his random thoughts and stuff, it would be good. Yeah, so he was excellent. Come here, the other Ronaldo, before we let you go, because you've been very good with your time, he gets what he wants. United kind of get what they want in that they don't have to spend any money. Certainly the football side of the club get what they want. I'm sure TeamViewer are like, oh my God, again, more of this. Which, that relationship seems like it's on the rocks anyway. So I don't know. What's next for him and this grand soap opera? Is there a European club who will give him what he wants?
I don't think that's the question. We'll give him what he wants. There's okay, nicely phrased, sorry. It's, to my mind, it's the immovable object and the irresistible force, because the irresistible force is Cristiano saying, I want to play elite Champions League football. And the immovable object is the clubs that can give him that predominantly don't need him or want him. Now, I will say that Todd Bowley wanted Cristiano Ronaldo in the summer. Fact. At that point, he spoke to all the people he's brought in, and he's acting sporting director as well as owner. And there was a broad consensus, and Tuchel was dead set against it. When Christian Pulisic understood that Tuchel was out and Potter was in, Pulisic's people spoke to the owner. And the owner said, Potter will give him a fair chance. He'll be told he's an American, he's going to the World Cup, he's the men's team leader, blah, 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 blah. And Graham Potter has done exactly as he saw fit with Christian Pulisic, rather than going, I've got American owners who want Pulisic in the team more. They're not directly interfering in the team selection, but they've made it clear that they'd like him to feature. And Potter's done his own thing, by which I extrapolate that Graham Potter, for as long as he feels either secure at Chelsea or feels, I don't care, I'm going to do it my way, I think will continue to resist Cristiano Ronaldo. So there's one of the minor possibilities gone. Are people at Paris Saint-Germain who know they're going to lose Mbappe, are they crazy enough to bring in Cristiano Ronaldo, and pair him with Messi? My opinion is They are. I'm not saying they will, but it's a never-ending piece of nonsense about what they're willing to do. They've got a very good sporting director now who's on part-time money because he also wanted to stay sporting director at Celta Vigo, and they're ignoring him, and I think that relationship's going to break. So it's going to be an oddity if one of the clubs that can give Cristiano Ronaldo what he wants, which is elite level, chances to increase his appearances and his goals in the Champions League, give him an open door. But the key to your question is, does Cristiano Ronaldo now look differently in the mirror and reassess himself and say, I have to continue in my training regime, my ambition, my attitude, but tailor my demands a little bit? And if he does, then maybe there's a place for him. If he doesn't, then I think he's going on a farewell tour of an Arabic, rich petrol-driven, oil-driven, Arabic league or the MLS.
Graham, great stuff. Thanks a million.
Enjoy your World Cup, lads.
You too. Take care. Talk soon. That's Graham Hunter live from Qatar this morning.